In 1896, Argentina was as rich as the United States. Richer than France, richer than Germany, richer than Italy and Spain. Buenos Aires was called the Paris of South America. European immigrants were flooding in by the millions. The country had more fertile farmland than most of Europe combined. It had beef, it had wheat, it had oil, it had everything. Today, Argentina has defaulted on its debt 9 times. This is not a story about bad luck. This is not a story about geography or resources or a country that was dealt a losing hand. This is a story about choices, specific choices made by specific people for specific reasons, and the country that keeps paying for them. To understand what Argentina has lost, you have to understand what it actually had. From the 1860s to 1914, a period Argentines called the Belle Epoque. The country grew faster than almost anywhere on earth. 6 million European immigrants arrived, most of them skilled workers and farmers from Italy and Spain, looking for a new life. Argentina gave it to them. By 1896, Argentina's income per person matched the United States. It was higher than France, Germany, Italy, and Spain, the very countries those immigrants had left behind. By 1913, Argentina had more railway track per square mile than the United States. Economists called it an economic miracle. One observer in 1905 wrote that Argentina was on the threshold of her greatness. He wasn't wrong. In 1905, the country had every ingredient. What it didn't have was the political culture to protect what it built. In 1946, a military colonel named Juan Perón was elected president of Argentina, and this is where it starts. Perón nationalized the railways, the central bank, the telephone system, the gas industry. He created hundreds of thousands of government jobs. He raised wages dramatically. Real wages jumped 40% in his first term. He was enormously popular. He won re-election in 1951 with 63% of the vote. Here's how he paid for it. Argentina had spent the Second World War as a neutral country, selling food to both sides and accumulating massive gold and foreign exchange reserves. By 1946, those reserves were enormous. Perón spent them, all of them. And when they ran out, he printed money instead. Inflation under Perón went from 18% when he took office to over 50% by 1951. That's not a rounding error. That's the beginning of a pattern that would define Argentina for the next 75 years. By 1955, the military had seen enough and removed him in a coup. But the damage wasn't the politics. The damage was the template. Every politician who came after him learned the same lesson. Spend generously, win elections, leave the debt for someone else. What followed was a cycle so consistent it almost feels scripted. The military junta that took over in 1976 borrowed massively from foreign banks. Debt rose 37% in just 2 years. When they left in 1983, they handed democracy a debt bomb. The new democratic government printed money to cover the debt. By 1989, inflation reached 3,000% per year. 3,000%. That means something that cost 1 peso in January cost 30 pesos by December. People were paid weekly because their salaries lost value by the day. In 1991, a new government tried something radical. They fixed the Argentine peso to the US dollar. 1 peso equals $1 forever. It worked for a while. The economy stabilized, growth returned. The 1990s were genuinely optimistic. But fixing your currency to the world's reserve currency without fixing your government spending habits is like buying a Ferrari on a bicycle budget. Eventually, the math catches up. By 2001, 4 years of recession had pushed unemployment to 23%. 40,000 companies had closed, and then the government made the final mistake. On December 1st, 2001, the government froze every bank account in the country overnight. You could withdraw a maximum of 250 pesos, about $250 per week. Your life savings, your business operating funds, your rent money, frozen. The government called it the corralito, which in Spanish means the little playpen. They had put the entire Argentine economy in a playpen and locked the door. Argentina went through 5 presidents in less than 2 weeks. On December 31st, 2001, New Year's Eve, the country defaulted on $81 billion of debt, the largest sovereign debt default in history at that point. Half the population fell below the poverty line. 24 hours later, he fled the presidential palace by helicopter as crowds gathered outside. People took to the streets with pots and pans, banging them in protest, a sound that echoed through every Argentine city. On December 19th and 20th, the protests turned violent. 39 people were killed. The president declared a state of emergency, and within 3 years, the next government was running the same playbook. Since 2001, Argentina has defaulted 3 more times, 2014, 2020, and the cycle continues. The farmland is still there, the cattle is still there, the oil is still there. Argentina is still one of the world's top food exporters, a country that could literally feed 400 million people, while 30% of its own population lives in poverty. In December 2023, a new president took office, Javier Milei, an economist who campaigned with a chainsaw as a prop, promising to cut government spending so aggressively that inflation couldn't survive. In his first 18 months, he achieved Argentina's first budget surplus in 14 years. Inflation fell from 211% annually to around 33%. Poverty dropped from 57% to 28%. The numbers are real. But Argentina has been here before. A new leader, a new plan, real early results, and a political system that has, every single time, eventually returned to the same template Perón invented in 1946. Whether Milei is different, whether this time the cycle actually breaks, is the most important economic question in South America right now. And nobody knows the answer yet.